Nothing makes me feel more at home than getting my comic books back, graded and slabbed by CGC. Hey there, today I have a CGC unboxing video, and in this one I'm going to open up 15 comic books that I sent off to get professionally graded and slabbed by CGC, and before that I sent them to the Palm Beach presser, who cleaned, pressed these comics and forwarded them on to CGC on my behalf. This is all part of my routine now, where I'm regularly sending books to Palm Beach presser. Ron is doing amazing work with my books and helping me with my routine and my process. And these routines that I have, it brings me a lot of comfort. And I was away for a couple of weeks in Europe, and I really felt homesick. I felt away from my process, away from my comics, away from the things that I like to do. And I thought no better way to fight those feelings than when I got back home, go ahead and open a box of slabs from CGC. I mean, why not? It's the perfect remedy, I think. So these 15 books I sent to Palm Beach presser. He went ahead and provided his assessment and some feedback on these books. I had originally pre-screened them as a certain grade, and what I do is I try to find the books that I think have the most potential if Palm Beach presser were to work on these books, and then if they were ultimately sent off to CGC for a grade bump. Always the goal for me is to take my assessed grade and see if I can improve the books in some way by utilizing the great services of Palm Beach presser in the process. As always, I don't look at the grades, so I don't know the final grades that CGC gave these books, but I will go through what I had originally assessed the book at, and then the grade that Palm Beach presser gave, and then moments before I do, you will see the final grade that CGC ultimately gave the book. Now, in order to start feeling better about being home and getting back into the routine, I have to get this opened up. All right, it's unpacked. What I do is I take off the one side of this rigid bubble mailer so I can see the backs of the slabs, and we can't see the grades. And I'll just go through them in no particular order. And we'll get started with the first book, and it is one of my all-time favorites. What a gem. Fantastic Four 244 from 1982. John Byrne did everything. Cover, interior art, story. This was his epic run on Fantastic Four. One of my all-time favorite books here. Frankie Ray as Nova, a Herald of Galactus. And I've always been in love with this cover, and I've been chasing this book in as high grade as possible to try and find a 9.8 candidate for the longest time. As a bonus, for those lovers of the barcode, this is the newsstand edition. For me personally, Fantastic Four 244, it doesn't make much of a difference to me if it's a direct or a newsstand, but what I do when I submit newsstands, a lot of times in the CGC form, the drop-down doesn't have a newsstand edition as a variant, and so I will often have to create it as a new book. I don't know why CGC is not updating this. They have broken out direct to newsstands now for several years, but a lot of times it's just not available as a variant, so I will actually type in newsstand edition and create it as a new book if it doesn't exist, because I want to make sure that the newsstand edition is indicated on the label. Now, I don't know if me creating it as a new item in their database, if that's what gets the newsstand edition on the label, or if they do it separately, but I don't want to take a chance and submit the wrong book or have it delayed. This one, Fantastic Four 244, I had originally screened it as a 9.2, and Palm Beach presser's notes 2 tiny spine color breaks at the center, very light spine corner wear at the bottom, and he gave it a 9.8 probable on his predicted grade. So let's check it out. Fantastic Four 244, the newsstand copy, and it got a 9.8, white pages, tremendous start. That's awesome. Lovely to finally have this book in a 9.8, as I've been chasing it for years. If you watch a lot of my raw book unboxings, I'll buy this book from Mile High Comics. I think this one in particular I got at auction, and I do see the two spots. Again, this is where I feel like a 9.7 is probably the correct grade for this, but I understand they have to make a decision here. but there are 2 color breaks on the spine right here where it says Win Calls Galactus. They're right there in the purple, and I mean, you can't miss them. But CGC went ahead and allowed it to be a 9.8, I think because the rest of the book looks just so outstanding. The back looks nice and clean. Thank you, Ron, for all of your work on this one. A real centerpiece for me in the Fantastic Four run by Byrne. Just tremendous. Absolutely love it. And I guess now I got to chase the direct copy because I said I didn't care, but I kind of do care. So I'm going to be on the lookout for that. But great start on that one. Next, we have Sandman number 8. This is from 1989. I did also pick this one up at auction. This is the first appearance of Death. Both DC and Marvel have their own character named Death and kind of what that means within their universe. The Marvel version was kind of a cosmic entity having a relationship with Thanos. And the sort of DC Vertigo version of Death is one created by Neil Gaiman during his epic run of Sandman. Now, I have fallen in and out of love with Sandman just as I completed a full run of Sandman, including issue 1 and 8, which were the 2 big keys that I had been chasing. I think that I've just kind of distanced myself from everything, the Netflix show, the series, and have decided to start moving on from a lot of the graded copies that I picked up. I've sent a number off to MCS just for processing, and it's just, without getting into the details, I just don't feel comfortable having them anymore, and it's not part of my long-term hold plan for comics. These are essentially books that I want to go ahead and get graded, get them in the best condition as possible, and then move on from them. And so part of me, as I move through like my exit strategy from the hobby and looking at different phases, the first phase continues to be books that either don't get the grade that I expect, books that I'm really just, like I said, fallen out of love with, or books that maybe I've upgraded and I want to move on from the lesser copies, the lesser conditions. There's only so many books that I can keep and collect and enjoy. And I think that's part of the hobby, is looking at some of these books. And I think this is something that doesn't get discussed quite often. We see a lot of people pushing live claim sales. We see a lot of people talking about flipping and things like that. But the underlying kind of mentality or approach is to always kind of move off of the books that you don't want, or the books in the lesser condition, books that you don't think will get a 9.8. And those are the ones that people are really pushing, but don't talk about, like, why are they selling them? All of these people that love comics, it's like, yeah, but you're also talking about getting rid of them. And the reason is because there's something behind the scenes, and it could be any reason why a collector maybe falls out of love with a particular book or character or creator. And I have my reasons, and Sandman is one of those that I'm trying to move away from. Now, it was just kind of a coincidental thing that at the time I decided to move on was certainly the time that I had completed my full run. This is also an example of a book that I've been trying to send more to the Palm Beach presser in terms of inserting a couple of bigger books or bigger keys for me personally, that I don't want to keep these books raw anymore and want to make a decision to do it. So, talked a lot about it. Sandman number 8, the first appearance of Death. I had given this book a 9.0 when I got it back in my possession and screened it. Palm Beach presser noted wear at the bottom spine corner with a decent amount of color loss, and I can really see it. It is quite rounded off and almost shaved to a point. This is a tricky one because the FF244, the corners are sharp, but it has 2 color breaking ticks very visible on the spine. This does not have any color breaking ticks, but has a very, very harsh rounded corner. So to me, I kind of want to see, and I have a feeling without knowing the grade, as Palm Beach estimated a 9.6 plus, I think they're harsher on the corners than they are the spine. So let's see here, Sandman number 8, the first appearance of Death, and it got even worse, a 9.4 white pages. So I think that to me really not necessarily proves out any sort of theories, but the bottom corner, and you can really see it here against the ad, that great Batman 1989 ad in the back, where it's an all black cover, which makes this book particularly tough to get in a high grade. But there it is, right there, that corner. It's just from the back cover and the front, just too soft. And there's the detail of the corner, just too much, 9.4 white pages. So now this checks pretty much every box that I have in terms of which books I want to keep, and putting them side by side. FF244 is going to be a book that I hold on to for as long as possible. Sandman number 8, a 9.4, is a book that is going to go off for consignment pretty much straight away. No interest in the creator anymore, no interest in the book, and it getting a condition that was less than optimal for me. Still 9.4 is great, but for the investment I made in the book, I'm looking to try and just cover my losses at this point. Moving on, Marvel Chillers number 3 from 1976. Just feel like I went on and on about Sandman number 8, so for all of those You Talk Too Much haters, that one was for you. But moving forward quickly, this book, super great. The origin of Tigra, great character for me. West Coast Avengers, being part of that original team. So very much familiar with this character. This to me was, again, just the design of the cover, it being a difficult book to get in high grade. Also a book that has sneaky value that's kind of under the radar. For all those reasons, I picked it up. And sending that great 1976 book in at the modern tier to CGC always just pleases me for some reason that I can do that at the modern tier. Marvel Chillers, for me, this one, issue number 3, I gave an 8.5 when I screened it in my possession. And this is one of those books, too, where why would I send an 8.5? And looking at Palm Beach Presser's estimate, he gave quite a bit of notes with a 9.2 minus estimated grade, but he noted general light spine wear with small texture changing, creases on the back spine, light color wear on the front cover, tiny corner pieces missing at spine corners, seen from the back, light corner rounding of back top left corner. So a lot of notes here, really appreciate that. Why did I send this book in? And what ends up happening is that my initial investment to acquire the book is so small that there's enough room between what I paid, the assessed grade, maybe the projected grade if it were to get a grade bump and so forth. So there's also some value tiers beyond just 8.5 on this one. But this will be an interesting one to see what the final grade is, because there's so many grader notes provided by Ron, and a 9.2 minus. So yeah, there's some value range here, but there's also condition range. So let's see here. Marvel Chillers number 3 from 1976, and it got an 8.5. All right, so that's a lot less. This that whole explanation of grade bumps and value here or there, the expectation is that it does not come back in the grade that I had assessed it in. And so that's part of it. So this one will be another one that will go into the pile of just trying to move on from, as it didn't work out. And I'll have to check out the grader notes from CGC on this one. 8.5 white pages, beautiful book, but was looking for something more in the 9.4 range in order to get a little something out of this one. But really tough, and also just very interesting how the first 3 books ended up grading out, because I think I would have graded all 3 much differently myself. I probably would have given the FF a 9.6, the Sandman a 9.6, and this one probably a 9 or 9.2, but what do I know? And part of it is, I think I've received a comment about, this is a little bit, it feels like it's gambling, and the reason it does is because of the inconsistency from CGC. And so that's where there is an element of gambling here. But the way that I look at it is, you just want to be an intelligent and informed gambler so that you know which table to sit down to, what game is being played, so that you can try and maximize your return. Next is Inhumans number 5. This is from 1999. This is the first appearance of the new Black Widow, Yelena Belova. I always love on the label too, face not shown. I mean, it's clearly black bold on the cover. Her face isn't shown, but it is referring to an interior shot where she's revealed, but kind of in the shadows there, which, is it a cameo then? And, it always depends on the comic book market and the collectors and what they deem first appearance and everything. But this is what everyone has basically decided on is the first appearance of Black Widow. I picked this up right around the time that Thunderbolts was being cast and filmed. Florence Pugh returning as the new Black Widow. I've actually enjoyed her character. I thought she was great in Hawkeye, so I've been chasing this one down and decided to send this through the process here. Inhumans number 5, I had assessed it as a 9.2. Palm Beach Presser said color loss at the bottom spine corner. So this is exactly the same as Sandman 8 in terms of corner. The structure of the book looks fine otherwise. Looks like a great book. There is some fraying, but this book being a Marvel Knights book from 1999, the spine fraying I think is okay. It will pass. But what I'm betting is that corner is so round, this should be a 9.4. So I gave it a 9.2. Palm Beach Presser's estimate a 9.6 plus, and CGC gave it a 9.4. So already just kind of course, learning in hindsight in a way where I probably should understand this before I send the book in, but was looking to get a 9.6 on this one. And part of the decision-making criteria on these as well is when they are key books or key first appearances, there's kind of an additional push that I have to go ahead and submit the books, even if maybe it's a borderline value add, where if I were comparing this to a non-key, I don't know if I would send that book in, and part of it would just be because of the inherent value of a non-key issue in that condition. So that's where, if you're putting criteria together and you're looking at is the book considered a key or not, if the book is a key, it kind of pushes it a little bit over the edge in terms of the decision-making process to send these books in. Next is Uncanny X-Men number 150. This is the direct edition Magneto appearance milestone, 150th issue, double-sized. I've talked about this before. The double-sized issue seems to just kind of not affect the value at all, even though the cover price is a bit more at that 75-cent target. Miss those days of comics being 75 cents. I'd originally assessed the book as a 9.2. Palm Beach notes light sun shadow on the back bottom edge, and I can see it's at the very 1/8 of the bottom of the page. It's just the slightest of tanning there. We'll have to see if that affects the final grade. Palm Beach Presser did say 9.8 possible, so I give it a 9.2. He's estimating that there is a chance on a 9.8, and CGC gave it a 9.6, and then off-white to white pages. So I think this was fairly assessed by Palm Beach Presser, and I'm betting that that's probably what did it in. The book looks tremendous otherwise. It looks like a super sharp copy. I mean, other than that, just slight discoloration on the back. This one appears to be in better condition than the Fantastic Four 244. And this, this run of Uncanny X-Men, while great, it is plentiful, very easy to find. So a 9.6 is probably that make or break grade. You're really looking for a 9.8. 9.6 has a little bit of value, but it's not necessarily what you'd consider to be an investment grade for that specific issue. Next up is Transformers number 2. I think this is going to include, in this shipment anyway, a run of books that I wouldn't say necessarily are staples of books that I find and I try to go through this process and grade. But these are regular recurring books that I try to accumulate, and I try to get as many in a 9.8, and a lot of times they fall short. But the reason I send books like this in on repeat is because I can find them at a price point consistently that where it makes sense to do this. Now, Transformers number 2, I had screened the book as a 9.2. Palm Beach Presser noted fibers blunt and slight color loss at the top spine corner seen from the back, which I'll have to take a look at here once I reveal the grade. He estimated a 9.6, 9.4, and CGC gave this book a 9.6 white pages. Let me check out what he was talking about. Yeah, I can just see the slightest of blunting and color loss, but CGC seems to be hammering this submission because the book looks just fantastic otherwise. But I can see just, again, it's really related to a corner issue at the very, very top, and not so much anything to do with the spine itself. And so that's something that, I need to get better at. I understand that grading is not just about the spine, and that's not what I'm saying. What I need to get better at is understanding what would impact that final grade the most. So if the spine is relatively clean, but there's corner where it may not get the bump that I'm looking for. So I still might be assessing it correctly with the potential improvement, but it might not have the ceiling that I'm looking for. And I think that's what I'm trying to say in terms of like the corner assessment. So if the corners are sharp, I think the ceiling would be higher, is basically it. Next is Uncanny X-Men 167. This is probably a similar situation with X-Men 150. A 9.6 in this book. It's kind of your make or break. You're looking for 9/8. Really easy to find, but an excellent Paul Smith cover. Paul Smith on interiors as well. Chris Claremont story. New Mutants, Starjammers making an appearance. Lalandra, Gladiator, just perfect peak Chris Claremont through and through with this great epic run, and you've got the beauty of Paul Smith art on this one. X-Men 167 I had assessed as a 9.4. Palm Beach Presser noted light tanning of back cover spine edge, very minor color loss at the bottom spine corner. 9.8 is possible. Based on his notes and the way this submission's going, this feels like a 9.6, but let's see what CGC said, and it got a 9.8. Off white to white pages. These grades and page qualities are all over the place. Yeah, I mean, again, I see a little bit around the bottom staple where there's definitely some color loss, and then just the slightest of color loss around the corner. And then I think the page quality probably got affected. I can see the color loss along the spine here. But just so you can see the difference, look at the bottom corner on this one. It has a little bit of color loss there, but it is just a touch sharper. And then this was the staple that I was talking about right there towards the bottom, just the slightest of color loss, and then along with the corner. So this to me probably also is a 9.7, but it got a 9.8 off white to white. Let's see. Let's start covering up these 9.4s. And, I have a preference for white pages just because it's the highest page quality you can get. So not getting the 9.8 white pages on X-Men 167 might be on the lookout to pick up an upgrade, but still really nice grade. That was the value grade that I was looking for on that one. So thank you, Palm Beach Presser, for your work there. King Kong #1 from 1991. This book is one that I've been missing in my run of Dave Stevens, trying to get as many Dave Stevens books in a 9.8. This one I regularly pick up from Mile High Comics. It's not cheap, but I feel like it's giving me the best chance to try and get the book in a 9.8. And when I got this back from Mile High Comics, it absolutely had that Mile High Comic near mint 9.2 assessed grade that I gave it. That seems to be exactly what their near mint grade is, and you just hope that the 9.2 includes maybe some general creasing and not too much color damage so that you could send the book off for pressing if you wanted. The interesting thing with this one, Palm Beach Presser provided no grade or notes, 9.8 possible. That's usually a very, very good sign when Ron does that, but there's only one way to find out. And let's see finally if I was able to pick up King Kong #1 and get it back in the grade that I wanted. Gosh, it just missed it. 9.6 white pages. It's so funny how there are certain comics that just elude me, that I just cannot seem to get in a 9.8. Sometimes it is a particular issue like this. Sometimes it's a run like Tomb of Dracula. And it's just some weird coincidental luck on my part. So 9.6 on this one. I'm going to keep trying to get it. Still a great grade, but for me, looking at it along the spine, there's just some weird color loss here by the staple. And then also just kind of up and down here in the spine. I don't know, it almost reminds me, I don't know how to describe it, almost like a little bit of a tape pull, right? Where you've just like put some general tape down and lifted some color off. And that's probably the best way I can describe it, color lifting off of the cover. Yes, again, in the bottom corner, there is a touch of color loss down here, just so we can all see the game that we're playing. And it's all about corners, I think. So that's what I'm learning with this submission, is that not having those perfectly sharp corners with no color loss, it almost makes it, again, not like that I wouldn't send the books in, but just lowering the ceiling. And so what I mean by that is when you're trying to assess, like, hey, what kind of value could I potentially be adding? And I go through and say, well, If it's a 9.2, then I want to look at the values in 9.4, 9.6, 9.8. But if there is color loss or rounding of the corner, I just need to eliminate that 9.8 value because it's unlikely that it would get it. And then you can kind of decide, well, if it gets a 9.4, 9.6, is it worth it? Next is another great Stevens book, Seduction of the Innocent, 3D #1 from 1985. This one is a fun one. I think for me, I love Planet Comics, but I love this one almost equally in terms of the cover design. It's great for the Halloween season, obviously. It's a great book. I'm not allowed to display this in the house, and I don't know why, because I think once the fall rolls around and you start decorating for Halloween and Thanksgiving, I feel like this is an absolutely appropriate book to put on display. The other interesting thing about this one is, other than me continually getting this book graded and picking it up just because I am in love with it, is Ron and I often discuss this book where it is a book that has typical manufacturing issues, and it's something that we both are kind of aware of, and we're learning that there are specific books that will typically have certain damage to it. Most of the time, this is affiliated with Grails, where your Hulk 181s, it's so valuable and it's so speculated on and meticulously reviewed, where people start to see patterns of damage or patterns of manufacturing issues. So the pattern here on this one is that the spine always seems to be split. And it's something that where if you start to learn and you do this long enough, you look at a book like this, and if you were to look at it raw and see the spine splitting and you weren't aware of these patterns, you would just say, I'm just going to discard it. It looks like a 9.0 or an 8.5. I'm not going to bother. But a lot of times with natural spine splitting, because of the structure, the way the book was put together, the publisher, the page quality, things like that, CGC is also aware of these patterns. And so sometimes you can tap into those patterns and use it to your advantage, because it is something that CGC commonly dismisses or overlooks, or not overlooks like they should be knocking the book, but overlooks in terms of what they'll accept. So it should be more like an acceptance criteria. Now for me, I assess the book, again, from Mile High Comics, getting that near mint 9.2, and that's just kind of the way I leave it. Palm Beach did note short bindery tear at the bottom corner, light color loss at the top spine corner, and he conservatively grades this one always 9.2 to 9.4, just because of that discussion that we're having, just to make sure, because we don't know if CGC has a database of like common manufacturing defects on specific books. We have no idea. We don't have any insights into the process. All Palm Beach was saying is basically that it typically has the damage that you would normally see from the manufacturing aspect, but he was noting it just there's a bit of excessive bindery tearing at the bottom corner more than normal. Now that all of that's been explained, let's see what CGC finally gave this book. 9.8 white pages. Okay, so after all of that explanation, I was sitting here as I was talking about it going, this better be a 9.8 because then this will kind of make sense. So a perfect example for me personally of understanding the book, understanding how it was manufactured, understanding my source, and then also understanding the relationship and the discussion that I have with my presser, where he and I can have an open conversation about it and point out things. And it's just a tremendous experience. Back to my point, I get excited about this. This is my comfort zone. This is my comfort food. This makes me really happy. Obviously, the 9.8 makes me happy, but Dave Stevens, one of my favorite books, 9.8 white pages, and also just understanding exactly what expectations you can have for a book. And it's taken me years of trial and error, investigation, CGC boards, working with Ron, all of that to get to the point where I can have confidence in sending a book like that in. Now, a book that I don't have confidence in, Tomb of Dracula, any Tomb of Dracula book, but I love this one. It's a little fun cover design where you've got kind of a book leaning to the side a bit. But I pick up Tomb of Dracula books. This is Tomb 56, 1977, Gene Colan, Tom Palmer. Just from the creative aspect, the history, the age, Marv Wolfman on story, always makes me chuckle because Marv Wolfman is writing Tomb of Dracula. He'd be the perfect Werewolf by Night writer, obviously. But I just can't get these books in a 9.8. I have had people tell me directly, almost like an intervention style, stop sending Tomb of Dracula books in. They're not going to get a 9.8. For whatever reason, whatever you're doing, you cannot seem to do this. I can't stop doing it. And Tomb of Dracula 56, I gave it a 9.0 originally. And Palm Beach noted several notes here. Color breaks on the spine, especially at the top corner from the corner blunt, which he noted was removed. Light color loss at the bottom spine corner, small crease line at bottom right corner, and a 9.0 plus was his estimate. So this could be back related to kind of the Marvel chillers where, you know, I'm looking at a grade bump and some value beyond that, but it's possible that there were so many things wrong with the book that it just couldn't be improved. But let's see here. Tomb of Dracula 56 from 1977 got a 9.0. The interesting thing here is that the original assessed grade and then Palm Beach Presser's notes and projected grade were right almost spot on, right within a certain range, where it kind of didn't make sense to submit a book like this. The other tough one for me was that the staple placement on this was outrageous. The staple just sitting on top of the book instead of along the spine. So just a problematic book altogether. And of course, like a dummy, I thought, yeah, let's send this in and give it a shot. And sometimes I do it just because I want to learn and I want to hide that book behind the 9.8 on purpose. But I kind of want to see, like, what can we do with books that have staples on the top? What can be done with some of these other defects? And the result of that experiment is very little. Just kind of didn't work out there. Let's move on to Werewolf by Night, written by Doug Mensch and not Marv Wolfman. As the Werewolf by Night series continue, this is issue 41 from 1976. Super awesome to send this in the modern tier. But the classical Bronze Age horror titles kind of started to move into the superhero element just as they started to finish out their run. And so we can see here we have this man with the gaze of doom, fire eyes. But it looks like some sort of typical superhero battling werewolf by night. So the whole like grounded horror theme ran its course, and here we are in the later issues. But what's nice is in a 9.8, a lot of these books still have tremendous value because they are difficult to get in a high grade. Now, this one again had the near mint as a 9.2-ish kind of assessment by me when I screened it. This one's interesting because Palm Beach estimated a 9.0 minus, so he graded it even worse than I had screened it at, where at the bottom spine corner with plenty of fibers, faint crease line at the bottom right corner. And so this could be something that I just completely missed. Also, you may want to look at Palm Beach Presser's pre-screen service. This is something also I just keep thinking about, and I am really stubborn when it comes to my ability to grade. I think what I have been noticing is it's not that my grading skills have deteriorated or been getting worse, but I do feel like I'm probably rushing some of these books through the process where I'm not getting that like 14 out of 15, 9.8, unless I'm doing maybe a pre-screen with some newly or recently released books. But some of these older books, I don't feel like I've been doing as well as I used to, and so it's something where I might consider moving to a pre-screen model, not by CGC, but using Palm Beach Presser, where maybe instead of sending 15 books, maybe I send him 20, pay for the pre-screen, see what he comes back with. Because honestly, the 8.5, the 9.0, and then whatever this book is, which doesn't look like it's going to turn out very well, it might make sense to use that service because you basically end up saving money other than you're kind of invested in a slab that you may not even be able to move on from. And a lot of people would argue you're better off cracking it and just selling the book raw at a huge loss. So it's just something I'm thinking about. But let's see here before I jump the gun. But it's not looking good. Werewolf by Night 41, and it got a 9.2. So my originally assessed grade, it just kind of came back as a 9.2. And Palm Beach Presser's 9.0. Again, close enough. 9.2 white pages on this one. And it's right smack in the middle of that grade and value where just not a book that I think I'm going to hold on to for the long term. Next one is Vanguard Illustrated #2. I thought I'd run out of these, quite honestly, but did find another copy. There was a period where Mile High Comics had these, and they were underpriced, and many of them came back 9.8. Mile High has long since adjusted that, and I think they sometimes when they panic and realize we didn't price a book correctly, they'll throw it up for like 100, and then of course you have to use their 50 or 60% off coupon to lower the price. Another great Dave Stevens book. First appearance of the Stargrazers, but really you're buying it for the yellow cover and the Stevens art. And my cat has come in, so he wants to get involved in this process if you hear him in the background. But Vanguard Illustrated from 1984, I gave it a 9.2. That's kind of just, again, my standard near mint pre-screen grade. Light wear at the bottom spine corner was the note that Palm Beach Presser gave it. But he did say 9.8 possible. So let's see what grade CGC gave it at 9.8 white pages. Just, I kind of laugh and I'm critical about the books that I can't seem to figure out, or Tomb of Dracula, Werewolf by Night, or just some of the other issues that King Kong getting the 9.6. This one I have figured out. Now, I do hope this is the last copy I have, unless there's some other issue lying around here, just because I don't need 10 copies of these in a 9.8. The other thing, too, is at the peak of the Dave Stevens collecting run, I think that book was selling around $300, and it has dropped all the way down at around $100 now. So it is really, really fallen off. But again, still, relatively speaking, that original rough investment, and then to go through this process of getting it clean, pressed, and graded, still ends up working out, even if it has fallen down to about $100 value. And the way that I collect, really only needing one issue, these are great books to go ahead and move off for me personally and send them off for consignment, just because there's really good margin based on my original purchase price. Okay, I had to pause for a second. He insisted on being part of the process here for the last 3 books, so this will be fun. Next up is Incredible Hulk 347. This is the first appearance, or the first time that Hulk becomes Joe Fixit. I'll let the cat kind of assess the book here. Another book that I was regularly finding from Mile High Comics that had quite a bit of value. I felt like it was underpriced. Not my favorite cover in terms of the design or the look, but if you are a lover of Wolverine #8, where you have Joe Fixit and Patch on the cover, thought he was going to knock those down for a second, then you kind of want maybe a little bit of backstory, or try to find this first appearance, which this one is, and if so, then there's a little bit of value in this one that may not jump out at you right away. I had screened this book as a 9.0, and now I see this is actually the second book in this submission where Palm Beach Presser did not provide any grader notes. So this is a good sign. He gave it a 9.8 possible. So let's see, Incredible Hulk 347 from 1988, and it got a 9.8 white pages. So a really nice book with some upside here. Just lovely. And looking at the corners are nice and sharp, all 4. Very, very minimal spine wear, just some light non-color break increasing, just the tiniest of issues along the spine. But yeah, it looks tremendous. Really, really nice. Maybe the cat brought this one good luck. 9.8 on this one. What do you think? Looks good? All right. Looks good. Let's cover up that 9.6. We have 2 more to go. Next is Detective Comics 553 from 1985. If you love a good Batman face, this is a book for you. Just tremendous. Doug Mensch on story. Klaus Janson cover and art. Typically, you think of Klaus Janson as an inker, particularly associated with Frank Miller, but here he is on interiors and cover. Cat's not impressed, so he took off. So we'll finish here, the last couple here solo. Detective Comics 553, I had assessed as a 9.2. Palm Beach noted 2 tiny color breaks, possible tears at the top edge, light spine corner wear. Interesting. Okay, so if those are tears, then we're in trouble. But let's see here. Detective 553, he did estimate 9.4 plus. And CGC gave the book a 9.6 white pages. So this is probably Exhibit A of exactly what I'm trying to do. Not every book's going to get a 9.8, but I thought it was a 9.2. Palm Beach noted some wear, but a 9.6 white pages on this book is a very, very nice grade just because of the cover design, the ink, and where the book started and came from to get it all the way up to a 9.6 white pages. It's very, very nice. So thank you, Palm Beach, for your work on that one. You know, again, obviously the big value is in the 9.8, but it's not always about that. It's about the possibility of getting it in 9.8, and so that one in a 9.6 is really, really nice. The last book, X Infernus #1. This is from 2009. Cover art by David Finch. This is featuring Magic as Darkchild. This is another book that I could get regularly from Mile High Comics, almost for cover price, and it had really nice value in that, say, like $60 to $90 range. And so that's basically it. I'm a huge Dave Finch fan. I love it. I think this is a tremendous cover, so a lot of desirability here, and looking at books that minimal investment, decent upside, but also books that are going to be collectible, and going ahead and putting a book like this through the process. X Infernus #1. I did assess it as a 9.4 from Mile High Comics, not a 9.2. Palm Beach Presser, no greater notes on this one, 9.8 likely. And CGC also gave it a 9.8 white pages. A nice finish here in terms of the grade, getting a 9.8 on X Infernus #1. Kind of a mix here in terms of the results. Definitely the page quality, the corner issue. This was a session I would say that I continue to learn from and recognize that I have to be a little bit more discerning and maybe even more conservative or harder on the books when the corner damage is evident, and again, just kind of eliminate the higher end of the ceiling and then evaluating things. So I have to think about this in terms of how I want to mark a book when it has damage. I will typically mark it like whether it's a pressable book or a book that needs cleaning and pressing, but I might start to indicate it as something that could benefit from a press but has some corner issue, and then based on that assessment, again, just kind of like remove the higher end of the ceiling in terms of my evaluation and decision making. But still, I think overall a really nice submission. There are several in here that have a really nice value, but overall probably just disappointed in myself with 3 or 4 of the books in particular that I probably should have graded a little bit more harshly, but still very happy with the results. Really appreciate you, Palm Beach Presser, for the work that you did on this submission. A lot of this is really just kind of the education of all of this, and it wouldn't be possible without Palm Beach Presser's involvement to try to maximize the grade, where it really just kind of takes the mystery out of wondering what grade could this book get. Sending it to Ron, you're always going to maximize the grade. You're always going to get the grade bump if you are screening your books honestly and appropriately, which is something that I always want to make sure that I try to get better at. What do you think about the submission or the books that I sent in? Are you kind of agreeing with CGC on some of the grades? What's your take on the corner versus the spine issue in terms of what kind of things CGC looks for? I'd love to get your feedback. Thanks for watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time.